My name is Bridget Pettit and I am a Kaizen specialist here at SASH. I'm going to take you through a bite-sized module to talk about 5S. What is 5S? 5S is a foundation strategy of the SASH Plus improvement methodology. It helps keep the workplace safe and organised. It helps remove waste, improving productivity and reduce costs. And it's an everyday activity, not just a one-off day event. What it does is it allows us to visually manage our environment and should be done at the start of any improvement work. Electronic information can be done too, and this can be the hardest as it's hidden. And every time you do 5S, you can think you are giving gifts back to the gift of time back to the team. Disorganisation is a barrier to workflow. So what is the outcome of this situation here? It's absolutely chaotic, isn't it? There's piles of paper and notes, which are a health and safety hazard, and it is really hard to know where anything is and what's happening. The person who works here may well say, oh, well, it's okay, I know where everything is, but would they know if somebody else came and took a file? If there's a patient notes, for example, and you're the patient at the bottom of that pile, when are you going to get to be seen? So obviously this is not a very productive way of working. So we're going to talk about 5S as a method to improve the workplace environment. The 5 S's are sort, simplify, sweep, standardise, and self-discipline or sustain. 5S can remove all sorts of waste. It can remove excess inventory, out-of-stock supplies, avoiding defects, searching for supplies, includes motion, walking for supplies, motion, wrong and outdated parts, which will cause defects, and moving parts around the workspace, moving things around, which is a transportation waste. The first step is sort, where you're sorting the necessary from the unnecessary. This is most critical of the 5S stages. You need to set objective criteria before you start about what is necessary and what you deem is not necessary, and then use the 3 R's, retain, remove, return method. So you're sorting out the things that you need to retain, or the things that you need to remove that shouldn't be there, and then a thing that needs to be returned to another area that might have become has moved into your area. For example, some equipment that might belong to another ward. Check that nothing essential is removed and nothing as unnecessary is retained. We use a system called a reg tag, which is a visual control. If there's anything that you're uncertain about or thinking of removing, you attach this to the item and write a time scale on it to say this is going to be removed within 2 weeks, and then you ask all your team to review it, because there might be something that isn't used very regularly or frequently, or is only used by one member of a team. So some equipment, say, that a physiotherapist might use, that the rest of the team aren't aware of how it's being used. And so you don't want to remove it because they are using it, but people might not necessarily recognise it. So and then you can share the red tag, put it all in one particular holding area, and you can do this with files as well. You can make a folder and say this is a red tag area, and then you can email it round, email photos around, WhatsApp photos around if everybody's not coming in, to let people know. So we also say power levels need to reflect demand. So a power level is a minimum level of inventory. This should be related to the use. For example, if a ward uses on average 5 sample pots a week, and these are restocked weekly, then they need to ensure they have a week's worth of pots at any one time. So their power level might be 5 for this week, and they may need a buffer in case they have a surge in demand. So during the 5S in the trust, we found stocks of 80 sample pots, which have actually been almost a year's supply. So it's worth making sure that you don't run out, but you haven't got a stock level that's too high. So if you here, let's look at this photo, you can see the supplies are very neat and they're labelled and they've been sorted, but are they connected to other pile levels connected to use? You've got a huge number of pens. Do you really need all these green pens? Step 2 is simplify. A place for everything needed, in its place, ready to be used. So it's important to determine the location of supplies based on their frequency of use. So put the things that you're using most frequently easiest to reach, so that they are most accessible for the point of use. And then you can put things that are used less frequently, say higher up on a shelf or further down a shelf or in a store cupboard further away from the place at point of use. Clear labels for easy identification and restocking, particularly label where things should be, but also so that you know if you've run out of something, you know where it should be restocked for. So you can put a picture there or put a label clearly saying what should be there. So when somebody comes to restock the cupboard, they know where to put things. Label mobile items and less familiar items. So the example I gave you earlier about a piece of equipment that might be only used by one member of the team, people aren't aware of what it's being used for, make sure it's labelled. And then create parking spaces to show where something should be. So if you look at this picture here, we've got, this is the difficult airways trolley, and it's got a cross underneath. It shows where it sits. So it's very clear where to put it, and it's clear if it's missing, because this piece of equipment is needed in a hurry, and it's very important that everybody knows where it is. It's also this, when we come to the next stage, it's very easy to see whether it's missing when you're walking along, when you're doing your sweep, which is the next stage. Create sign out tools so that people know where things have gone to, so that it avoids you having to search for it. So if a piece of equipment is being used, you can just say where it's, you can sign it out, say where it's been taken to, and then contact details so that you know to go and get it. So this middle one again, it just says difficult airways trolley taken to theatre, and then the number of the theatre can be written in there, so that somebody, if they're in theatre 4, whatever they need, and they need it, they know that it's gone to, say, theatre 7 because it's written there. Step 3 is sweep. So we don't mean sweeping with a broom and tidy cleaning up. We mean sweep with your eyes, having a look round and doing a visual inspection. It's a form of inspection that ensures that everything is returned to its proper place. So it helps you identify missing items, helps you when you would remove and replace broken equipment, and ensure unnecessary items haven't crept in. In the previous example, we showed how it's really useful to have place markings so that you can see if something's, very obviously see if something's missing. Or you can have what we call a shadow board, which shows you where everything should look and where everything should be. So it's very, very obvious to see if anything is missing. And on the left here, we've got a checklist for ensuring whether the tasks are complete or not. So it's having a way of checking all the time whether your 5S has been done, whether the sort and the simplify has been maintained. So you can decide what frequency that you need to do this. So it might be something that you do daily at the beginning of a clinic or at the end of a clinic. It might be something that you do weekly, which would be perhaps a store cupboard when you're doing you're ordering, or it might be something that you do less frequently. So you need to set a level of frequency and then have a checklist for ensuring the tasks are completed. So this example on the left here is the corridor monitoring, how often people are monitoring how well the patients are in the corridor, and that's an example of doing a regular sweep. The fourth step is standardise. So this is about ensuring consistency and accountability. The team needs to devise an agreement to clarify your roles and responsibility. So you need to do your sweeps, but you need to have an agreement that everybody is going to keep the 5S up to the right standards. They're going to make sure that the sweeps are done appropriately and that people agree that they're going to restock things and put things back in the right place. So you need to clarify roles and responsibilities. Whose responsibility is it to reorder? Whose responsibility is it to put things away? Whose responsibility is it to do the sweep? It's really good to document a visual map of the work area, like this one on the left-hand side, showing you where things should be, where everything should be kept, and that means it's easier to standardise and easier to keep that sweep appropriate. So here you've got a 5S agreement at the Godstone Medical Linen Cupboard, and it's saying who's responsible for doing which thing, if anything's running out, who you should need to contact, and it shows the whole team's agreement about how they're going to do this work, because this is quite a difficult thing to keep it maintained. You need a structure for maintaining it, because it's one thing to do a big clean up and a tidy up, but a 5S is more than that. It takes it that step further to standardise it. So the fifth step is self-discipline. This is about maintaining those standards, and it is really difficult. It requires commitment and leadership. Consistency is essential, and you need to involve the whole team in doing this. We have a 5S audit tool, which is shown here on the right, that helps you review and whether you're maintaining those gains, maintaining the standard of your 5S. You can add your the 5S sweeps to any Gemba rounds that you're doing or any checklists that you routinely do to make sure that you are continuing to keep the 5S standard going. Investigate root causes of non-compliance. So if something is consistently running out, or have you got your PAR levels right? Should you up your PAR levels? If things are creeping back in and being put in a different place, did you get the understanding of how they're being used wrongly? You know, is that item actually more frequently needed than you initially thought, so it's being put back in a different place? Or have you not communicated to the rest of the team how things should be done, how they think things should be put away? So rather than just get frustrated that people aren't complying, think about what is the root cause behind things not keeping the standard that you mean, and then develop a corrective action plan. You know, how are you going to resolve that? This audit tool, it's a closer picture of it, and it gives you an idea of the different levels that you can get to around, and some tips and ideas of getting things absolutely right. So a lot of places you probably would start at level 1, and then you're moving up through them as you things become more consistent, more visual, and more sustained. And I think Virginia Mason, from whom all this comes from, still haven't got to level 5 on all their 5S's. So here are some examples of how 5S's have been applied, how 5S has been applied in SASH. Here's an example of a therapy equipment cupboard, so before and after, showing everything was slightly jumbled and chaotic on the left hand side, and some equipment that were no longer being used. And over to the right here, particularly at the bottom, you can see exactly how many of each different size of walker is there available, and so you can straight away see that you've got more of this size one than you have of the other one, so you can see how you should be ordering, whether you need to order. This example is the pharmacy bleeps. So this before they were all put in together, and then they've been put out on a board, you know, separated out. Can you imagine if when the pharmacy bleep, if one of the bleeps went off when it was in that big pile? Subsequent to this, they have been, this was taken to the one step further because it's continuous improvement. The numbers have been put in the inside of the tray so that you can see straight away which numbers, which bleeps are missing. Here, 5S in action again, an opportunity to release valuable space. So this was on one of the wards that was doing a 5S and an RPIW. During the RPIW, they had all this storage space, and when they reorganised the storage space, they managed to free up a quiet relatives room. You can do 5S of your folders. It doesn't have to be a physical space. So here, this is an example of our own in the KPO team. We have folders that the whole team uses, and they've been being used by different people for several years. And we found that we had the same set of folders in 4 different locations. So there were duplicate folders across them. So if anybody was updating a folder, you didn't know where they'd updated them. So after the 5S, they're all in one place in the right order. You can do a 5S of a form too. So you can use the same principles, same application of what's necessary and unnecessary. So in this case, again, during an RPIW, things that were no longer needed were taken off, and things that were needed that were missing were added. It might not look very different to the eye, but it went through about 14 different iterations during the RPIW, talking to the consultants who filled it in and the receptionists and nurses who received it and looked at it and were using it. Again, here we've got a 5S of a linen cupboard. So here it is on the left hand side before, and then it's all organised on the right. The lower use items are up high or down low. Any unnecessary items would be visible because they're out of place, and additional stock was removed, and all the shelves have been labelled, and you can see here the levels that they need to be stocked to, how far up they should be stocked. So have we achieved 5S? Can you see the improvement here from that previous photo that we saw right at the beginning? Everything has been cleared off. There's a lot more space on here. Could we make any further improvements? Well, look at we don't know what's in all these cupboards. So they could either take the front off the cupboards and have them very visual so you can see it straight away, or you can put a photo on the cupboard to show where things should be, something that's particularly useful in a drugs cupboard. Otherwise, if we're looking for something here, you'd have to open each of the cupboard doors until you found it. And here you've got some space on the right hand side. There's extra space on the bookcase. Maybe that doesn't need to be there anymore. So the key point of this presentation around 5S is that it's a very powerful strategy. It's fundamental principles for the improvement work that we do. It shows a way of visually managing and making your area safe. It's really important to teach the whole team to do it together, and find a champion. You'll find that somebody is really keen to do this kind of work, so you can find a champion and help them lead on this. Do include your whole team, your diverse team, so that you don't fall into the trap of deciding that you don't need things that you do need, or that you get your power levels wrong. Involve the whole team in doing that evaluation of whether things should be kept or gone, and then get the team to develop the standards for the agreement. Ensure a variety of staff undertake the sweeps so that there's a shared ownership of the 5S, and then communicate and celebrate results. If you've seen, it's very powerful to see a before and after photo of different areas. We've sent you a link to a exercise and to demonstrate the power and simplicity of 5S. It will be in the link that we sent through to you for this course. The game consists of 4 quick rounds, and you need a printed out version of the 5S game with letters on it, which has got 4 pages, and a pen. Good luck!